You've finally done it. You've just signed your training contract and have secured employment for your articles, just like everyone said you should. But as time passes on, and the end of your career inches closer, instead of relief, a subtle dread settles in. 3 years of articles. 3 years of audit, you think. The idea of audit articles drains you even before day one. How do you face a journey you've already convinced yourself you'll hate? Again, we are joined by Muhammed Ismail Bulbulia CA, founder and editor of myCAhub, and one of the youngest ever top 35 under 35 finalists back in 2022. We chat about how to maximize the growth in your articles on the road to CASA, and most importantly, how to turn that frown upside down and see the bright side of your audit articles. We also chat about the universal language of accounting, how the VBS Bank audit scandal transpired, the social skill of giving people choices, myCAhub and how it started, and of course, more. I hope you enjoy. My travelers on the road to CASA. Happy Father's Day to all of those father figures, the protectors, the people who watch over us. Kudos to you and thanks to you. I think in a very dangerous world and particularly dangerous country, we truly do salute you. So shout out to the father figures and fathers. And it's about to be, so I'll say it in advance, Youth Day. Happy Youth Day. It's also Youth Month, obviously. And yeah, man, this day, it's always that day of the year for me that it's such a mix of emotions. It's like, there's this just mixed bag of nervousness, excitement, of hope, of reverence. It's just such an incredible day, I think, for especially aspiring CAs, man. And I think about how, yes, we are the future. People tend to look at the youth as that which will become. But, being an aspiring CA, I start to see more and more, and I start to appreciate that we are also the present. Like, you are already a difference maker if you choose to be, if you choose to embrace the mantle of your responsibility, right? As a human being, not just a youth. So it's such an incredible day, an incredible month to look at what we are doing, man. And to see that, we are here. But also that we are because of those who came before us, right? So, yeah, just hearkening back to June 1976. I am proud and I'm grateful, and man, I'm excited to be a South African. Speaking of the youth as well, and being a South African, we have some of the greatest merch coming out of South African finance in the form of myCAhub's merch, man. So please check it out in the show notes. Muhammad's merch is so funny, so fun, and that'll be linked in the show notes. But if you have not already, check out part 1. On to part 2. Next quote, man. Yo, knowledge is power. That was hectic. This one's a little bit long-winded, but I think I had to include every word.
Sure.
If English is the language of global business, accounting is the syntax. It doesn't matter whether you're in Brazil or Bali. Debits should equal credits. Poor cash flow signals a dying business, and everybody hates the auditors. That last line killed me.
That was a good line.
It was good.
That was an original line.
Yeah,
I came up with that.
That was good.
No, I agree with that, bro. I something that I discovered about being a CA and becoming a CA is that firstly, your skills are in demand internationally, which is incredible. There's not many professions that can point to having that type of demand. And the training that you do is international too, especially the CASA. Comparatively, I've heard that the training or the program to become an equivalent accountant or chartered accountant in overseas programs is not as intensive or as rigorous and does not produce the same quality of accountants / chartered accountants as the CASA program specifically. And I've heard that attested to many times from CAs that have worked with other accountants internationally from Australia, New Zealand, the US, India, like 100%. The first thing, and just from that statement, we can take is that you can work with other accountants internationally, and there is the scope, like many people are doing it, so that's firstly incredible because if you think about it, a lot of jobs are not like that. You're very limited to the country that
especially like a law. Law is a very clear kind of example.
Definitely.
Jurisdiction even though you are super trained. If you're trained in SA, SA law, maybe some level of UK law because of where we're based. But SA law is already such a mishmash of a lot of things. So
even medicine, bro, like you can't literally go walk and practice as a doctor anywhere else, even though you've been through like hell here in South Africa to become a doctor.
Yeah.
So the second thing is like, even inside South Africa, in every business, right? You need an accountant. Yeah. Like an accountant is like the fundamental basics of making a sale and accounting. Like literally, where do you put the sale? There needs to be VAT on the sale. Like VAT is charged to you when you're purchasing products. The very basis, costing. Costing. How to cost your products when you get them from raw materials, the service, the labor component. How do you
the systems
account
now,
for it?
With a CA, there's the systems aspect of audit, because you've got to be such a good systems thinker.
Sure, but even if you're running a business, exactly, you've got to have. It's good to have good systems, but on top of that, if you could have a good business, but then how do you know it's been run well? Do you know what I'm saying? Before the sense of there being an audit or there being trust placed in an external consultant, or even developing your own skills to go through, what has been done with professional skepticism, with an inquiring eye. Like all of that falls under, the broad umbrella of accounting and becoming a chartered accountant. And like that, it breathes into the world of business. It's like you said, if English is
you said.
Yeah, that's just it. And the thing is, like, around the world, people conduct business in English. It's even called business English.
Yeah.
Because that's the lingua franca of conducting business. Everyone, whether you're in Japan, in China, in Algeria, like, to conduct business between borders, English has been selected as the lingua franca. And with that, the thing binding it all together, business together, the syntax between, the syntax, is between words.
You need to explain in a sentence. That a little bit. Yeah, just because we're accountants, we're not English majors or IT specialists.
I think from my understanding, syntax is like the rules of how a sentence is constructed. The rules between verbs and nouns and where it should go in a sentence and how a sentence. That's what syntax is.
Basically, grammar.
Sure, basically.
Very, very basically, it's grammar.
Sure. And my point with that line was accounting is like the grammar. If English is the language, accounting is the grammar, because you need to understand accounting and it binds it all together and you can use it internationally. It's ubiquitous. Yeah. Well, that was a good quote, bro.
That was a really good one, dude.
Yeah.
This is the last one for this section. There's deadlines, drama, and often days of dying on the inside. But there are immeasurable treasures to be found if you're looking to learn. This was you talking about audit articles.
Yeah. No, I remember that one.
Yeah.
I have to agree. Look, like articles is tough, right? Articles is definitely has a audit articles definitely has a reputation for being tough. Well-deserved reputation. But again, I was speaking to my sister. She's in third year articles. She's at Standard Bank, so she's not in audit. But she's also having a tough time in M&A currently. But the truth is, like, and I have to commend Saika for this part of the articles program, in becoming a CA, and that is the soft skills that you learn, the on-the-job soft skills you learn as part of your audit experience are literally, you can't put a quantifiable amount to it, right? It's what's the word?
Invaluable?
Yeah, probably invaluable. Like you can't
put a value
price
to it
yeah.
because it's so valuable. Like
you can't put a price. You can't pay for it. You literally can't go to a university or to like an online course. You can't even go and tell someone, let me pay you to teach me these skills, right?
True.
Where I need to get information from you as an audit trainee and you hate me. You hate the fact that I'm asking you and I've got to find you've got to find the support and I'm asking you and I've got to put it in a work paper. And as an audit trainee, in your articles, you've got to deal with managers, partners, the clients, other trainees. When you're in third year, you're managing other trainees, you're managing the audit time management, project management, you different clients. You learn Excel. You learn how to email.
That's a hard skill, but yeah,
definitely. No, it's a good
incredible
skill, bro.
Yeah.
And email communication, it's incredible. It's 3 years of absolutely putting your pedal to the metal, and there's the deadlines. Audit is notorious for deadlines and for missed deadlines, maybe. And but it was actually all worth it if I think back, because I learned so much. I learned so much about myself, and I learned so many skills in just 3 years that I never learned at varsity. And you can only learn that on the job, in my opinion. You can only learn that from actually experiencing it and doing it. And I really use almost all of those soft skills in my business. I don't use the technical skills that I learned.
Naturally.
You can always, you can always Google or pick up something or call an expert, But when it comes to interacting with other people, interacting with clients, when you watch how the partner interacts with the client, what's been going on behind the scenes and what a mess. But they presenting.
They're cool,
man. They're cool. They calm. I learned so much from that, and from how they managed other people. They managed when things were going to pieces. That was a whole education in itself. So, I would my advice to anyone in articles, or about to start articles, is to make the most of your articles experience, and because it won't be there forever. And I know it can be easy. Sometimes you get opportunities to drop off at 3, for and I mean you should, if you can take it, if you deserve a break, take it. But if you find yourself in a position where you're just chilling for long periods and that's an anomaly, right? But you're chilling for months on end, you're not being challenged, you're not trying new things, you're not you're wasting your articles experience. You only have 3. And the other thing is, you can mess up in articles. I'll be honest, you can mess up. Nobody is going to come after you. Nobody is going to, the companies are there. The companies have to train you. Unless you literally commit fraud. Unless you commit fraud or you do something that...
of gross negligence. Yeah. Gross negligence here.
Yeah, if you're completely useless, it's their job to train. You've made it so far. You have to achieve those competencies, and they also on the line to assist you with demonstrating and achieving those competencies. They have to help you get there. They have to find a plan, So you have everything going for you. Also, nobody's going to come after you when you're in articles for you're not signing off. on the audit report. You're not signing
even
off on
legally
financials.
as well.
Exactly.
There's limited liability.
You know, in VBS, when they did that report, they did go into details, but they named all the audit trainees and everyone. But that's just it. In that report, the hilarious thing is from the first year, the second year, the third year, the manager, everyone with everything spilled, the beans completely spilled. Their documentation was perfect. They did everything ethically. It was literally when they spoke to the audit partner who said, "I'll audit banking cash."
Oh,
You never have an audit partner auditing banking cash. You give that to like the first year.
Sure.
The first year, like the freshest first year.
Yeah. For those who don't know, VBS was a huge audit scandal that happened like 2018, was it?
Sure. I think the report came
17?
out 2018. You're right. 2018,
Yes.
2019.
Yes.
The great VBS bank.
Crazy stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Audit partner was auditing banking cash. Sure.
And the signing partner insisted because the money wasn't there. The most basic thing is that why you give banking cash to the first year is because you get the bank from the bank statement.
Very simple.
You get
there's the bank statement. You check the bank recon. It's like it's everything.
And then you get a bank confirmation. You get
a bank confirmation.
You get the information directly from the bank. So that was the key one, right? And from what I saw, the management, right, of BBS didn't want to authorize the auditors to allow them to get the bank confirmation from the bank directly, which would have showed there was no money in the account.
Sure.
They refused to sign off. And then obviously, so the first year will tell the manager, or the second year, I'm having an issue. Then the audit manager will tell the partner. Then the partner is supposed to be like, what
reported
are you
to
doing?
the audit committee.
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing? We need this information. But the partner said, I'll do it. It's fine. If I'm remembering correctly.
It's a funny story. You can go and fact check it. This is not...
please go.
Yes.
It makes for very interesting reading. In fact, the report is well written. And like I said, all the evidence is documented there clearly. What the first year and the second year, the comments they left when faced with, the obstacles. So
that's
tremendous
interesting,
reading. Yeah.
So you mentioned these soft skills being so integral even in your life now. There's one soft skill that you learned in your audit articles, and you wrote this in another article. We're done with the quotes, guys, but I had to actually draw attention to this specific skill because I believe, from even the conversations I've had with audit trainees, that this skill could actually truly change your entire experience of articles. It could make every interaction 10 times smoother, give you more power in your interactions and in your life, especially as a trainee and as an audit professional. But basically, you wrote, give people choices. Can you elaborate on what this is and how you applied it and how trainees can apply it?
Definitely. I don't know if it'll do all of the things that you mentioned. I don't know if it's like such a wonder.
I think it goes far. But you'll explain it.
I can definitely elaborate further. The idea behind giving people choices is to lessen their cognitive workload placed on them, to make it easier for them to make a decision. If we go back to that principle of your brain uses a lot of energy in making decisions. People are making decisions all the time, every day. If you make it easier for them to make a decision instead of presenting them with only one outcome, one hard outcome.
Yes or no.
Exactly. Yeah. Basically, then it would be easier for them to give you what you want to get to your goal. So if we say with presenting a client information, or even with basically advertising, actually a good one is definitely used by many companies, is offering variety of prices. So people will offer monthly versus annual, versus some people even offer a lifetime, and the idea is actually for you to do a quick comparison. By having those choices, you don't automatically know what is the worth of a monthly or of an annual or of a lifetime. But if you say, okay, if annual is worth 100 Rand, and monthly is 50 Rand, per month, then something's not adding up here. Maybe I could get more value. It makes more sense for me to take the annual because I'd only be paying for 2 months. You know, why would I be going with monthly? But then I could say, you know, why would I need a whole year's worth of access to the software? I only need 1 month, so I'm willing to only pay for 50. Actually, I only need 3 days, so I'm willing to pay for 1 month the 50 rand. I don't need to pay the extra. By giving people instead of having a one set price, you know, 80 rand for, or only having one for the year, you know, you would be losing out on that 50 rand for all the people who only want it for maybe 3 days to 1 month, but wouldn't be willing to take it out for the whole year and pay that extra. So giving people choices, I think, definitely does assist, especially when the idea is to lessen the cognitive load on the receiving party. You don't want to give too many choices, however, because then you again going on the other side of increasing the mental load of now having to process through all of those choices.
Analysis by paralysis becomes the case.
Exactly. Then I have a monthly, I have a 2 monthly, I have a quarterly, I have a 6 month. Then I must sit and think, oh, like, what's the most value? That's taken me into the other realm. So to find a healthy balance between, but I think make it easier. The basic principle of that is make it easier for people to get to to make decisions that get you where you want to be.
I would say 2 to 3 is a good rule of thumb. 2 to 3 choices
100%.
can never get you wrong, because there's even this thing called the Goldilocks effect. So I thought of 2 choices that absolutely make sense in your analysis, but then also 3 choices. Effectively, actually, 2 choices is 3 choices, because when you give someone the annual option and the monthly option, they can choose either the annual option, the monthly option, or nothing.
Exactly.
So there's 3 choices in that case. But when there's quote unquote 4 choices, but 3 options that you've given, the monthly, the yearly, and let's call it the bi-yearly, bi-yearly, semi-annual. I know semi-annual. So there's the monthly, there's the yearly, and then there's a semi-annual. So if you have 3 options, you can take advantage of this thing called the Goldilocks effect, which is basically that in a three-pronged choice, people tend to choose the middle. They tend to gravitate towards the center. And so what you can actually do with this Goldilocks effect, which is what Starbucks does to you every single day of your life, is that way, with the option that is, let's say, the second cheapest or the second most expensive, the middle, you can actually make it just a little less expensive than the most expensive. And so people will gravitate towards this thing like, I have a midi, I have a whatever at Starbucks, but you actually don't know that the midi is more expensive per gram, per milliliter than the small. And so your brain naturally goes towards that option. So that's the Goldilocks effect if you want to use it. But yeah, giving people choices, essentially easing the cognitive load, making it easier for someone else. I think it could genuinely change your career and your articles. Now, let's turn on to this business of yours called myCAhub. Can you share with us the story of starting it and what you guys do?
100%. So myCAhub was launched in April 2021 after I finished my articles at Deloitte here in Joburg. Like I said, I learned a lot from articles. The main thing I learned was I wanted to try my own thing. I wanted more control over my own time. I wanted more control over what I produced. And that was based on my values, as we said, freedom and independence for myself. And but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I made the decision to not continue in corporate after articles.
Straight after, hey?
Yeah, straight after articles. Yeah. And in January so I finished in December 2020. In January 2021, I'd sent off my application to become a registered CA to SAICA. You know, to get the CA,
Now
after my
you're
name.
eligible.
The final, yes, bro. After like 8 years. And then I was like, okay, my dad is an optometrist and he's been doing CPD for years. For those who don't know, CPD is continuing professional development requirements. And that, in a nutshell, that means as a professional, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, CA, you could have qualified as a doctor, lawyer, or CA, let's say 30 years ago, and you're still practicing. But a lot has changed in the environment and industry of being a doctor, lawyer. Laws change, medicine changes, accounting, like IFRS has changed. You know,
The
tax,
world changes.
The world changes.
Yeah.
And so how do your clients, do your users, how does anyone know that you're actually up to date? You know, that you're actually staying current and able to effectively convey the information that people are placing in your authority, you know? And so that's the concept of continuing professional development, whereby the overarching the overseeing organizations like the Health Care Practitioner Council of South Africa for medical professionals, for CAs it's SAICA. Yes.
Yeah.
Sets their own CPD policies, whereby what its members should achieve each year in terms of complying with those CPD, continuing professional development requirements. If you're still in varsity or in articles, don't worry about this. You will have to worry about it eventually.
No, in fact, you won't, because myCAhub will hopefully still be around by the time you're a CASA.
Exactly, we're going to get there. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so in a nutshell, all SAICA members have to comply with CPD requirements once you qualified as a CA. And my dad is an optometrist. He's been doing CPD for years. They usually have a certain number of points each year that you have to achieve. I think it's like 30 or 40 points. And you get points from attending seminars, reading articles and completing quizzes, writing articles, etc. So I went onto SAICA's website and I was like, I wonder what my CPD requirements are as a newly qualified CA. And I noted that SAICA had recently changed their CPD requirements, their whole policy. They revamped it entirely.
How recent was that change? So now you qualify, or effectively you're eligible to register. You're eligible to register 2020. How early was that new policy change? Okay,
so I finished articles at the end of 2020.
Okay.
And the change came into a place at the beginning of 2020. So in my third year of articles.
Okay, so just 12 months. So it's quite fresh.
It was very fresh. Yeah. And in fact, they hadn't really finalized it yet.
Sure.
They were still busy implementing it and rolling it out, especially the competency framework. What SAICA actually did is they revamped the whole program and they developed a overarching, comprehensive competency framework that will be applying to you right now too. So the idea is it'll apply from varsity all the way through to post-qualification CAs.
CA of 2025.
It is CA 2025.
Yeah.
It's changed now to CA of the future.
Yeah, because
it's 2025.
It's 2025
We've
now.
reached 2025. Yeah. So that was at the beginning in Jan 2021. And so I went on SAICA's website and I noticed they revamped the policy and they made it much more admin intensive. Previously, it was like medical CPD, where it was a certain number of points per year, certain number of hours. Under the new policy, they did away with all the points, all the hours, and members have to maintain a CPD reflective plan wherein you have to identify competencies, self-assess against those competencies from SAICA's framework, and then find and do CPD activities, and then reflect, and then maintain the plan, for a period of 3 years, a lot of admin.
Sure.
And something I realized from articles was that CAs hate admin and just don't have time.
People hate admin, TBH.
And exactly. And you're so busy, and you have so many demands on your time, and you're producing quality work, so you're getting paid. Why should you use your time for admin? The more time you spend on admin, the less time you spend generating useful income, in my opinion. So I had the idea of, what if we created a software solution that made compliance as easy as possible, in a nutshell? And that's what we did. So I did that. It took double the time, double the investment of my own bootstrap money. And the idea was, let's develop and launch a product that could make compliance as easy as possible. That is our all-in-one CPD toolkit. That's the actual software solution. And then that would be housed in an umbrella company. So the product is software solutions for CAs. But my vision for myCAhub was much bigger than just software solutions for CAs. It was intended and is intended to be a hub for CAs, where there's cool things happening for accountants, things that are different, things that are out of the, out of the box. And the software is the revenue generating aspect of that, which allows us to pursue different things for CAs. So at the beginning, one of the things that we were doing was financial literacy infographics and articles weekly, where we'd put out financial literacy infographics on a new topic, breaking it down to the absolute basics. One was like the basics of medical aid in South Africa, the basics of starting a tax-free savings account, the basics of retirement annuities, where the idea was no one ever exposed me to that information in school. I always wished I could learn about it sooner, with the compounding effect of time, the earlier and the longer you are in the game.
Time value of knowledge.
Exactly, man. Yeah. The better. So I wanted to make that information available to people, and also school kids at a much earlier age. And that was when I started our financial literacy workshop at my old school, St. John's. They have after school clubs. I would go in once a week. We'd speak about different topics. Each week I'd present. That was one of the ideas. A tricky thing, though, from my experience, we did that for like over a year. A tricky thing from my experience is very difficult to change people's behavior. Financial literacy is from my experience, is a behavioral.
Yes.
It's a question of behavior. It's not a question of knowledge. Even because I had workshops for people, to the public, I had several workshops, and people always commended, the quality of the information and the knowledge provided. But when it comes to actually practically implementing those steps, it's a question of the person's environment and the question of the person's behavior in that environment. It's actually got very little to do with whether the person has the knowledge or not.
True.
So I don't like to spend a lot of time and effort doing things that aren't effective. So we parked the workshops, and I mean, we have like over 15, 20 infographics which are still available on the myCAhub site. Then the second thing and all this time I was also building up, the CPD software, refining it, sales, like
selling it, yeah.
That was just one aspect. The main aspect, the revenue generating aspect, once we built the software and I had a quality product and I was getting good feedback on the product from the people who were using it, but there were not many people using the product, and it's no good having a quality product if you're not able to convey that.
Yeah.
So a huge lesson that I have learned and continue to develop is one of sales, and one of being able to communicate that value effectively to your target market. You can have a great product, but if you can't communicate that, then you're not making sales. Whereas even companies with poor products, poor quality products, with good marketing, You can bring in some level of sales. It may not be repeat sales, but you can,
But a SaaS tool like yours, it doesn't.
It depends. A big thing about SaaS is churn. SaaS meaning software as a service.
Software as a service.
Yeah, a big thing is churn, and people not renewing subscriptions.
The issue in your case is there's a very limited total addressable market because it's at the moment ATM.
No,
but it's only CAs. So now if you're churning the 50,000 CAs, you still actually got quite a bit of CAs to tap into. But if you're churning on this small market,
that's why a big part is you want repeat customers, and you do that by offering
a good product,
tremendous quality customer service.
Yes.
Something people want to be a part of, something people want to make use of. And
shout out to the merch when you speak about people being a part of it.
Well, that's part of it too. That's part of the thing I realized is CPD is not sexy. And people
You've done so well of you've done so well of destigmatizing your business, because obviously the flagship product is the CPD tool that you're mentioning. Yeah. But I don't think about CPD when I think myCAhub.
That's the idea, bro. That was part of it too, because people don't like to talk about CPD compliance and stuff. And I was, part of it was also just doing something different. I was like, what if I didn't like the association with accounting, of being boring. So what if I could make it fun? And I think you mentioned, I got into graffiti and street art.
Yeah.
And I enjoy streetwear fashion. So why don't I blend that with accounting? That was part of the thought process behind the merch. I used to paint on t-shirts in campus with fabric paint. So I always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
This just offered me the opportunity to really lean into that once things got going and things were sustainable.
How long did it take, hey?
I started the merch last year. So it took 3 years.
Yeah.
It took about 3 years. And actually it was 3 years of grinding and, finding the footing and the sales funnels and developing sales and the network and the relationships and learning. 3 years of just continuous learning until I was in a position of some financial stability where then I could start deploying some of the capital that I had saved from the business in itself into different ventures like the merch. And I'm going to go even harder on the merch.
Dude, it's going so hard though. Genuinely, although I haven't viewed much, this has to be the hottest merch in finance. Dude, it has to be. It has to be. You've mentioned this incredible business that you've managed to start, and you've managed to grow. And I wanted to know if there was one skill that you could not, if you were to go back to your starting days, that you could not do without, what would that skill be?
I'd say the skill that served me best that I had at the time of starting was...
To be continued in part 3. See you next week.